Hi, welcome to Mountain Road Life. I'm Kristen, and today we are talking about composting. So if you are looking for one super easy way to reduce your carbon footprint, then composting is the way to go. And yeah, it can be a challenge to set that up for some people depending on where you live, and we will talk about jumping through those hurdles, but we will also talk about setting up your compost as well as what can go into your compost. And you can see behind me, I've got my compost here, part of it. Another part is on the other side of the yard. I'm going to show you the system that I have, and so hopefully it'll just be a way to inspire you to get started on your composting system if you have not already. All right, so let's get started talking about how to jump through those hurdles if you are living in a housing situation that is not allowing you to compost. And so it's going to obviously depend on your particular situation. If you are living in an apartment, maybe that apartment complex can set up a composting system for the whole community, for the whole building. That's one option. Or alternatively, there are composting companies now in some cities that will actually come and pick up your composting. So you could look at that as well. If it's your HOA that's saying you can't compost, I would petition to the HOA and tell them why it is so important, why it's so crucial for everybody to be composting. Think about all those food scraps that are coming out of home kitchens and restaurants. You take all of those and put them in the landfill, and that is just such a waste. It doesn't need to go in a landfill, and once it's there, it's not breaking down in the natural way that food scraps are designed to do. And so if you in your community can actually compost your food scraps, then that is already just an incredible load off of the planet. And it's generating free fertilizer for your gardens and a beautiful biome for all the little critters, all the little bugs that live in your yard. So it is so important. So again, it depends on where you live. If you're in an apartment, that's one scenario. If you have a yard but you have an HOA that's telling you you can't compost, that's another scenario. So it might be talking to the people who are in charge of that community and petitioning for a community composting setup, or it could mean looking for a company that is in your area that will come and pick up your compost for you. So now that we've talked about those issues, the rest of the video is really just going to be showing you my process and the system that I have. And if you want to know what can be composted, then I really recommend that you click on the link above to the video that I created about 5 steps to reducing your waste at home. And in that video, there is a section that shows some examples of items that can be reused or recycled or composted. Some things can be recycled as well as composted, something like cardboard that is clean, paper towel rolls, toilet paper rolls, those can all go into a recycling bin as well as into a compost. So I like to just throw all of those into the compost so that, again, it's reducing the amount of waste that I'm sending off to somebody else that has to process that for me. So, all right, so I want to now talk about setting up your compost. And so I'm going to first show you the composting system that we have in the back of the house near the kitchen. Let's check it out. All right, so this is the original composting bin that our family started probably about 15 years ago. It's been sitting in this spot the whole time. And for many of those early years, all we did was just throw our food scraps into this bin, and then it just got broken down. And that was our system. And I would, take some stuff out every now and again to put into the garden. But super, super easy. You almost don't need to do much else other than that. But if you want a really healthy composting system, it's better if you're adding other things to the compost bin in addition to the food scraps. So let's talk for just a minute about what kind of food scraps go into a bin like this. And so something like this, you just want to stick to vegetarian food scraps. And I do put dairy in here, but that one is generally not really recommended for just a composting bin like this. If you want to be able to compost or break down animal food scraps, then you would want to look into a biogas digester, and that can handle things like animal bones, animal meat, and as well as fat, things like that, and dairy, and yeah, it can break down a whole bunch of stuff that you can't do in just a standard composting bin like this. Also, if you have any kind of containers that say that they're compostable, they have kind of more of like a plasticky type of film, but they're created by, but they're not actually plastic, created from corn or different products like that. Those should not go into a home composting bin. Those should go to a commercial facility to break those down. They won't break down in a traditional home composting bin like this. So vegetarian scraps are going to go into your composting bin at home. Things like apple cores and coffee grounds, tea bags. And I do like to put, like I said, other items in the composting bin that are natural and can break down as well. Things like cardboard and other containers that will be able to be composted. So with our system, we have this bin that's located near the door, that's located close by to the kitchen in the house. And we also have a smaller bin that's located right by the door outside. And so with that one, when we're cleaning up from cooking and we have all our scraps, then we just toss them right outside the door into that bin. And then once that fills up, then we'll come outside and drop that in here. And then this thing is gonna, everything that we're putting in to the bin here throughout the summertime is just gonna get devoured by all the bugs. They love it so much. We even have a bunch of bugs still flying here in October, and they're just eating away at what we've got. And so now it is the end of October, and so what I actually want to do is empty everything that is in here, and then I'm going to take it over to the garden, to the pile that you saw behind me. And so it's a good idea to actually have 3 bins. You have one that's going to be kind of your active bin, where you're putting all the food scraps that you have just generated, and then the middle bin is going to be for, I'm going to move this stuff now that has already been processed for a couple of months. I'm going to take that to the second bin or the middle bin, and then the third bin will be your compost that is finished processing and it is ready to be put into the ground. I also just want to mention other things that can go into your composting bin besides your vegetarian food scraps. So you could add any kind of yard waste, so dried leaves, fresh leaves, grass clippings, pine cones, twigs, anything that's coming out of your garden, any plants that are dying out for the colder months, you can pull those up and put them into your compost bin. So I'm always a little bit baffled by the idea of putting yard waste out on the street corner for the trash collectors to come and pick up. Granted, those yard waste scraps are then turned into mulch, which can then be accessed by the community, but why not just create your own compost or your own mulch from your own yard waste? It's so easy, and it's like free money. You don't have to go and buy fertilizer anywhere. You're just creating out of what you already have, out of the abundance of resources that are in your yard. So, and it's also by adding those scraps from your yard to your compost bin, it's actually going to add aeration to your compost, and it's going to make the compost a lot healthier, actually, and it will help things to digest and break down easier. So be sure to add other things beyond just your food scraps into your composting bin if you can. I also just want to quickly explain why I'm going to be moving the contents of this bin now at the end of October, is because it's about halfway full now, but I want to make sure that it's totally empty before the cold weather comes, because once the ground starts to freeze, then we won't be able to move the contents anymore. It'll be pretty frozen solid, and then throughout the winter time, the compost container will get pretty full, because obviously throughout the winter the bugs are hibernating, and so the food scraps are not going to be composted and broken down throughout the winter. And so also that means that in the spring, all of the contents from this container are already in our second bin, and so the stuff that's in that second bin already, that plus this stuff, is all going to be breaking down, and the process will be further along. Alright, so So we have got now the first load from the first compost bin, and that one's gonna go directly behind me into the middle bin. We built that one a year ago, and we actually just got the plans for it from another YouTube channel, so we'll have that one up. Click on the link if you want to check out how to build one of your own pallet compost bins. And then over on this side, we've got just the leftover dirt you would have seen in some of our earlier videos working in the garden and setting up the garden this year, that we had a whole big load of dirt, or this is actually compost and topsoil mixed, and we had that delivered, and I had an excess. I thought I was going to put a lot of it down on the ground in the garden. I wasn't planning on building so many garden boxes, and so we ended up just with an abundance of dirt left over, which is great because we can always use it next year. And so that's kind of like our third pile for now. It'd be lovely to build a third bin, like an identical one to what we have here, the wooden pallets, make a third one, but if we do, we'll be sure to record a video of that. But for now, I mean, just a pile of dirt works too. I don't mind. All right, so I'm now gonna move the contents of the wheelbarrow into our second bin. And I also just wanna note that if you look at this, the contents of the first compost bin, that it's a little gooey and yucky, and definitely not, you know, what you picture when you think about like what you see over here, the finished dirt and topsoil and compost all together, nice and fluffy dirt. It's partly because I am a lazy composter most of the time, and I do, like I say, just put a lot of the food scraps in and often neglect it, and I don't mix it like you're supposed to. So it is a good idea if you can turn your compost as you go, you know, every couple of weeks or so, just to aerate it, and also to add in, like I say, that yard waste as well. Really does help to create a much nicer compost and helps things to process more quickly. So my approach is a little more slow, but ultimately we will end up with some nice compost. It'll just take a while longer. All right, so that's basically the whole process. You've seen from start to finish how the scraps go into our small container by the kitchen door, and then over to the first bin that is located just outside of that door by the porch. And then we've got container number 2 with some stuff that's already processing, some of the garden waste that's in here, some of the yard waste, and now from that first bin, we've loaded that over into this container. And then over here we've got our pile of dirt and topsoil and compost that is all set and ready to go and to be used in the springtime when we get started back up with the garden. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And like I said, composting is so easy. I'm pretty lazy when it comes to it, and the main thing is just to keep those food scraps and the yard waste out of the landfill, and be able to use those resources that you have from your home to create fertilizer and rich soil that can be used in your garden, as well as creating an incredible habitat for the bugs in your yard. All right, well, please be sure to check back for more videos all about living a healthy and non-toxic life and gardening in your backyard or on your porch or in your windowsill, wherever you can. Until next time, I am Kristen from Mountain Road Life. We'll see you then. Bye.